If you hit the three dots, Jen, you can rename yourself.
Where are we on the DVDs? Are we a yes to DVDs or a no to DVDs?
We are a no to DVDs.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. All right.
Jolene, are you in the IT room or how are we doing that?
Yep, so we're gonna go right now and get it set up.
Okay.
Linda, is Paul doing, who's doing the roll call?
I'll do it.
Okay. Oh, Banu's back.
So can you see my screen? Because I can't tell.
Yes, I can. Yep, I can see it.
It doesn't show me. So when you share a screen, it doesn't show you, Jen?
I can't remember because, and if you let me share my screen, I can.
I think you can just start sharing your screen, but I'll stop. Oh, you know what? We can pause recording, Jen. So can you see anything anywhere?
No.
I'm
But
going to pause recording so
says-
this is not recorded for everyone.
Okay, perfect.
Just remember to make me start.
So I made the share smaller, but the pictures didn't get bigger. With view options. Zoom ratio, side by side mode. Is that what I need? No, that's not what I want.
Are you looking at, you can do participants and then you can see who's on. Is that what you're looking to do?
I just want to make, the pictures are very small at the top.
Yeah.
Is that how yours is too?
Yeah.
Maybe that's the default.
Yeah. I'm not sure how to change that actually.
Yeah, because I can't grab a corner. And I can't see everyone. They're small and they're not everyone can be
Shown at
shown at
once.
this. Yeah.
If you do go down to participants though, you can at
Participant.
least see who's, you can't see their faces, but you can at least see who's there.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And then trust funks here.
Jen,
Yes.
How about you stop sharing and then, Paul, if you put a gallery view, top right, there's view and then gallery view, then maybe you'll see a slate of.
Okay.
Um, let's see.
Oh, well, I've got standard side-by-side speaker and side-by-side gallery.
So if, I think Jen will first have to stop sharing and then,
Okay.
I'm just guessing.
Yeah.
So-
Who's sharing? Is it Linda? Linda?
It's-
Oh, there.
Yeah,
Okay.
now it's Linda. I mean, now I switched to me, but because Linda's, I can't, it's either one of us because we're both co-hosts and she's not at her desk.
Paul, if you go
there we
up
go.
to the top right to view and go to gallery, and that should do it. Should
Okay.
We
release
have it
everybody.
now.
And if you get one more person or two more people, then it'll go to a second page.
Okay. Now, without the share screening, it's the
Yeah.
way I want it.
With the shared screening though,
Mm.
there is a bar in between the side-by-side gallery and the shared screen that you can push the shared screen all the way to the side, and then you can
Oh.
get most of the gallery. The
Oh,
screen
okay.
gets small, but if you don't really need to see it,
Right.
that works too.
Okay.
Oh, so you put it in side by side? Okay.
Oh, I see. Okay. Okay. And is there with Zoom, is there an option to only look at people who have their cameras on? Like we had in GoToMeeting?
How do you do that, Luann?
I don't think you can do that, but you can set it to just see the speaker, whoever's speaking at that moment.
Yeah. Okay. Well, this works.
There's good and bad things at each platform, I guess.
Right. You get used to one and then.
Right.
Okay, I guess we can start, right?
Uh,
I think, Jennifer, I think you call the roll, right, when it's virtual?
Yeah, Linda was actually going to do that because I don't have my list in front of me, but why don't we wait till Linda? I think they're doing something in the booth right now. So let's just
Okay.
make sure that
All right.
we're good to go there. Yeah. Okay, we're having some technical difficulties. I've just been informed.
Okay.
So we will wait until those are resolved and we will begin the meeting. Ken, can you hear us now?
Yes.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Hi, Vera. You haven't missed anything, Vera. We have technical difficulties.
So for the applicants, we are going to have you shut off your video until we call on you, so that makes it easier for us to kind of keep the meeting going. See which members are there, to see which members are there. Thank you.
Paul, it looks like we have a full commission tonight.
Oh, yeah, good. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yep. Everybody's here.
We don't have our alternate though.
Just missing an alternate.
Yeah.
Well, we'll soon have another alternate. By the end of the meeting.
He's not on yet, is he?
I don't see him.
No. Don't count your chickens, Paul.
Okay, all right, yep.
I'm just gonna go see what's happening.
Okay.
Are we good? All right.
Are we good to go?
Yeah, I'm gonna wait for Linda and Sandy Ferrand, our new administrative assistant, to log on so that they
Okay.
can start the minutes. But yes, we're almost there.
Okay, Linda, it's not showing. Let's see.
Jen, did you restart the recording or is it still?
I did restart the recording at 6:30 just because I did not want to forget.
Okay, all right. I'll be right back. I'm gonna help Sandy. Oh,
No,
Sandy's
I
there.
think I did it.
All systems go for a launch?
We're ready to launch.
All right. Let's get this rocket going. Okay, I call to order the August 30th, 2021 meeting of the Inland Wetlands Agency. Linda, you have to do the roll when it's virtual, right? Yes. Ms. Painter, could you do the roll for me, please?
Corsi,
Corsi present.
Aho,
Present?
Chandy,
Chandy present.
Cooley,
Cooley present.
Cotton,
Cotton present.
Bertoni,
Tony present.
Plant,
Plant present.
Ron,
Ron present.
Ward,
Ward present.
DeVivo. I believe Mr. DeVivo is absent this evening. He did send us an email, so you actually have a full complement of members and no alternates.
Okay, very good. We have minutes from August 2nd.
I so move they be accepted as presented.
Okay, moved by Ward.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I would like to say that I did watch the video, but I also,
Okay.
there is a mistake in the minutes
Okay,
that should be addressed. Under special permit application of Robert Cardinal, the third paragraph down says special meeting application of Haven Communities.
Oh,
I think there was,
is that P? Are you looking at PZC or Inland Wetlands?
I'm in the PZC for August 30th. I'm looking at the meeting minutes from August 2nd.
But this is the Inland Wetlands.
Well, it says Planning and Zoning Commission August 2 at the top of the minutes. Under public hearings on the second page,
I
the
think
second
But I think
item down.
I think you're in the wrong packet though, because we're in Inland Wetlands Agency. So
Oh, I apologize.
Yeah,
I'm
no
sorry.
worries.
I understand now.
yeah.
Been
Mr.
a
Chair,
while.
yes.
this is Binu.
Uh-huh.
I'd like to note that I listened to the recording too.
Okay, all right. We have moved by Ward,
I'll second it for Tony.
second by Tony. All in favor, raise your hand. Okay, passed unanimously. There were some communications from the Conservation Commission, agents report, and Any questions on the, did we have an agent's report?
Yes, you did. Just,
Okay.
just an agent approval.
Okay.
Also, the Conservation Commission minutes speak to the application W1623.
So our old business is the application of C. Funkford driveway culvert replacement at 48 Separatist Road
Yes.
that some of us went to see.
Yes. Mr. Funk, I'm gonna start, you can start your video if you can join us since you're the applicant. Great, thank you. So yes, there was a field trip to the site, and during recent storm events, the culvert that is that crosses it's an intermittent water course at 48 Separatist Road has basically failed. It's a 12-inch culvert, and they're scouring. So this is a request for a repair of that culvert. We've been working with this applicant. Initially, he proposed to install a 36-inch culvert. We worked, Derek Delay and I looked at the application and recommended that he install 3 18-inch culverts offset 12 inches each. So, I mean, about a foot each. So we felt that would reduce the channelization of the water course. So Derek has looked at this and he has a memo dated August 23rd. And he believes that the culverts will adequately convey a 100-year storm event. There is a lot of debris that is coming downhill. So that's why we wanted to have the 3 culverts offset. And even in the event of some blockage during a storm, Mr. Delay felt that these would be adequate for a repair. Am I missing anything, Mr. Funk?
You summarized it fantastically.
Thanks.
Do we have any questions for Mr. Funk? I was on the field trip and seemed like a very reasonable thing to do. Vera was there too. Yeah, Vera?
I just want to make a note. There is a motion that we probably will act on tonight, and in that, Jennifer just alluded to it, as to prevent blockage of the culverts. Not only are the culverts important, the way they're placed and all, but the debris, every time there's a storm, that's going to wash down and add to the problem. So I'm glad to see item 3 in the proposed motion, and I think it's important that the applicant be sure that they clear the debris prior to major storms coming in.
You might want to clear some of that debris before Wednesday night too.
Yeah.
I agree.
Okay, we have a motion.
I'll be happy to put it forth.
Okay,
The award move to grant an inland wetlands license pursuant to the Inland Wetlands and Watercourses regulations of the town of Mansfield to C. Funk, file W1623, for driveway culvert repair on property located at 48 Separatist Road, assessor's parcel ID 15.32.19. As shown on plans revised through August 3rd, 2021, and as described in application submissions and amended on August 24th, 2021. This action is based on a finding that there will be no significant impact to the wetlands and watercourses and is conditioned on the following provisions being met. 1, appropriate erosion and sedimentation controls as described in the application shall be in place prior to construction, maintained during construction, and removed when disturbed areas are completely stabilized. 2, prior to removal of silt fence, the area shall be revegetated. 3, to prevent blockage of the culverts, the area up gradient of the culvert shall be monitored and debris shall be removed seasonally and prior to storm events with precipitation greater than 0.25 inches in a 24-hour period. 4, excess material resulting from the construction shall be removed from the site or distributed at least 50 feet from the edge of wetlands and watercourses. This approval is valid through August 30th, 2026. The applicant shall notify the wetlands agent before any work begins, and all work shall be completed within 1 year. Any extension of the activity period shall come before this agency for further review and comment.
Okay, thank you. Moved by Ward,
Second, Chandy.
second by Chandy. Any discussion?
I
Oh.
just,
Yeah, go ahead.
I just have one question.
Uh-huh.
It seemed kind of arbitrary to say just a precipitation greater than 0.25 inches. Jen, is there a reason for that, that small amount?
Well, that's generally what Derek uses when there's for monitoring erosion and sedimentation control. So that's what I put in there.
Okay.
That's one of those things that's observed in the breach. Okay, so we have a motion and we have a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, raise your hand. Passed unanimously. I wish they were all that easy.
Thank you, everyone.
Get that culvert in. All right,
We will. Thank you very much.
thank you. I think that's it for inland wetlands, right?
Yes. And
We are adjourned at 6:47 PM. Moving along to planning and zoning. I call to order the August 30th, 2021 meeting of the Town of Mansfield Planning and Zoning Commission at 6:48 PM. Ms. Painter, could you call the roll, please?
Corsi,
Corsi present.
Aho,
Present.
Chandy,
Chandy present.
Cooley,
Cooley,
Cotton,
Patton present.
Bertoni,
Or Tony present.
Plant,
Plant present.
Ron,
Ron present.
Ward,
Ward present.
and Mr. DeVivo, your alternate is absent this evening.
So we have minutes from August 2nd. And now, Luann, you can.
And if you bear with me, I'm going to share my screen. Since Luann had brought it up during IWA, I was able to find the error that she was referencing, I believe. And hopefully it is corrected in the motion on your screen unless there was something else.
Okay. All right. Wow, you're way ahead of us. Okay, good.
Oh, wow. Good catch. Sorry. I also have one correction. Page 6, just who moved and seconded the first motion there. It was Ward moved and Bertoni seconded. The second one was Plant and Ward.
So bear with me. I just need to see which motion that was.
The dwelling unit motion should be
Okay.
Ward moved and Bertoni seconded.
Okay. Sorry for doing this while you're waiting. Do those corrections reflect what were identified?
What was that, Linda?
So does this, is what's shown now?
Corrections and planning and
capture
zoning.
corrections?
Planning and zoning, yes.
Okay, we got it.
So now there's a motion. Now you just need someone to move and second.
Okay, who would like to move it?
I'll be happy to move
Okay.
approval of the August 2nd, 2021 meeting minutes with the following corrections. Replace reference to the special permit application of Haven Communities in the motion to adjourn the public hearing on PZC application P 1375.
With special permit application of Robert Cardinal.
Yes. I was getting to that. With special permit application of Robert Cardinal, and correct who moved and seconded the interpretation of zoning regulations for dwelling unit, or whatever you want to say, related to dwelling units. Ward moved and Fertoni seconded.
Lance
Oh.
seconds it.
Okay, very good. All in favor?
I'd like to note that I listened to the recording.
Okay, very good. I believe it
And-
passed unanimously. Okay. We have a public hearing.
And just to clarify, Luann, you also listened to the recording.
That is correct. I also,
Good.
There.
So we have a public hearing tonight,
You actually have two scheduled.
two scheduled. And would you like to do the boilerplate for me?
I would be happy to, Mr. Chair. So what you see on your screen right now, if you're watching at home, is how you can participate in this evening's public hearings. The call-in number is 1-929-205-6099. The meeting ID is 865-1554-4850, and the passcode is 953249. So that is the information that you will need if you'd like to call in this evening. There is also a link shown on the screen, which is also on the meeting agenda that you can click to join tonight's meeting. You will also need the passcode even with that hyperlink. As a reminder to all participants, including members and staff, please state your name before speaking. For those viewing at home on live stream, please understand that there is a 1 to 2 minute time lag due to transmission delays. If you'll be providing verbal testimony during the public hearings, you can call into the meeting at any time. We will take a few minutes after the applicant's presentation to give people time to call in. The guidelines for tonight's hearings. The purpose of tonight's hearings is to receive relevant information about the proposed applications from the public. Order and decorum shall be maintained at all times during the hearings. The commission reserves the right to adjourn the hearing to another date and time if the discussion becomes unruly and unmanageable. Given the virtual format, we ask that everyone bear with us if we encounter any glitches, if we are unable to overcome technical issues and/or the commission is having difficulty understanding information presented in this format, the hearing will be continued to another meeting. The order of applications this evening will be applicant and then public comment, first in support, then opposition, and then undetermined or request for additional information. When you're addressing the commission, please state your name and address and any party, group, or organization you represent for the record before beginning your comments. Limit your comments to the subject of the public hearing. Avoid repetition where possible. Summarize reports and letters that are submitted to the commission rather than reading them aloud, as all written information is copied and distributed to members. Direct all questions and comments to the chair. Do not attempt to engage in dialogue with members of the commission, staff, or any other parties to the hearing. Speak clearly to ensure your comments are audible to members of the public watching from home and are recorded. Commission members may ask questions of anyone providing testimony, but will not discuss the relative merits of the application until the hearing is closed. Failure to abide by these policies and procedures may result in a muting of your microphone or in dismissal from the hearing. As I mentioned previously, if you would like to participate in the hearing, please dial 1-919-205-6099. Enter meeting ID 865-1554-4850 and passcode 953249. If you encounter any problems calling into the hearing, please call 860-429-3330 and a staff member will assist you. And with that, Mr. Chairman, the first hearing that you have this evening was scheduled for 6:35 p.m. It is the special permit application of Robert Cardinal, owner and applicant, for earthwork in excess of maximum permitted by Article 10, Section H, associated with construction of a new single-family dwelling on Pleasant Valley Road. Assessor's parcel ID 36.88.90, PZC file 1375.
Okay, the public hearing is opened at 6:57 p.m. I can do the roll, right? With members present are Aho, Acorsi, Chandy, Cooley, Cotton, Fertoni, Plant, Ron, and Ward. Do you have a legal notice you need to read?
Actually, Mr. Chair, since this is a continuation
Okay,
from
it's
August
already-
2nd,
It's already been done. All right.
the legal notice was read. I will note for the record that there are several attachments that are listed on your packet for this evening's meeting, and including a staff report from myself that is dated August 26, 2001, as well as updated materials that were received from the applicant after the August 2nd hearing. So we do have that information, as well as a copy of the legal notice and the neighborhood notifications that the applicant resent on August 6, 2021.
Okay, good. So the floor is now open for the applicant to make their presentation.
Good afternoon and evening. My name is Matt Maynard. I am a civil engineer. I am the applicant's agent in giving the on this application. This, like Linda had mentioned, this is a special permit for a single family home in accordance with Section 10, Article 10, Section H.2 of the Mansfield zoning regulations. We did make it over the threshold for what is required for these types of uses. And this project currently proposes approximately 1,500 cubic yards of earthwork. We have approximately 400 cubic yards of earthwork that are going to need to construct the long driveway with this application, and long meaning this driveway is about 850 feet long. We also are going to have about 300 yards of excavation from the foundation that's going to go with this home, and then we have about 800 yards of general fill going around the home. We hit a little bit of a water table on this development, and so we can't do a full basement, and we have to do a crawl space, and it pulls the grades up and requires us to put a little fill to make the house balanced and make it look aesthetically pleasing on the lot. In this application, I have submitted this special permit, and we have I've worked with your staff quite diligently to prepare the materials and to get all the required information that you requested. This is sort of a tough thing because it's not a standard application for excavation that I normally deal with, where we have quite a detailed plans of the whole site and other offsite features. And that is why I also additionally asked for a waiver in accordance, a waiver of Article 10, Section H, 3.b, as I feel that a lot of that information really should be necessary if we were doing a full application plan for actually, doing a gravel permit or similar type application. This project has received health department approval. We've also received wetlands approval, and now we hope we can get your approval. And I'll be happy to take any questions you have.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from the staff or commission members? It's interesting that there's a high water table there. I guess that,
I wouldn't classify it as high, Mr. Chairman. I mean, it's just persistent and it
persistent, yeah. So it'd be easy place to make a well.
would be a very easy place to make a well.
That's one advantage of the site.
It certainly is. And if it was a little deeper, we would have probably supported a full foundation for this application, but I don't like doing that where I know the water table is very, very persistent and I didn't want to really marry the applicant to a pump.
Yeah, that's not fun.
No. And it's funny, your regulations allow me to use different volumes for different things. It's funny, the one thing I don't need any material for is the septic system because we have such good gravel on the site. But unfortunately, I do need some material for the driveway and the excavation of the foundation and then the general fill.
Okay. Any questions from the commission?
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I do have a few comments for you just from the staff report, but what I'd like to do, I'm not seeing anyone in the meeting for this, so if I can just read the instructions for connecting and then I'll give my comments, and if we still don't have anyone, then you can decide whether to close the hearing. So again, for anyone watching from home, and if you'd like to call in and participate, the number is 1-929-205-6099, meeting ID 865-1554-4850, and passcode 953249. You will see in the agenda item report that I prepared for you, there were a few items that I did recommend if the commission concurs with my review that this is not considered expected to cause any detrimental neighborhood impacts and subject to certain conditions. Is considered to comply with regulatory provisions. As Mr. Maynard noted, the draft motion that you may be considering later does include a waiver of that data accumulation plan. Again, I think the commission understands this is somewhat unusual for you to be looking at a special permit for a single family home. And this is quite frankly due solely to the amount of excavation. Again, I think given the fact that they have an 850-foot long driveway. The main things that I would note that are that I called out in my staff report in terms of compliance with the regulations is the applicant did note that they would like to have some Saturday hours of operations per the approval criteria for any type per article section H. Saturday activities are limited to deliveries and sales. Obviously, sales is not occurring here. So in other words, they cannot be doing active fill, grading, excavation work on Saturdays, but they can accept deliveries of fill material. Proposed truck routes, the applicant really focused on the driveway, that constructing that driveway entrance would be the first task. Given the location of the site, staff would recommend that all trucks be required to access the site from Stafford Road, which is also known as Route 32, to limit travel on local roads. And then last but not least, which goes along with the groundwater table that Mr. Maynard was mentioning, there is typically a requirement Article 10, section H.5.H, that requires a separation of at least 5 feet between your excavation activities and the groundwater table. In this case, the proposed separation is noted by Mr. Maynard is approximately 2 feet. I did review this with the assistant town engineer who didn't see any impact on groundwater quality for this. And I will also note the other reason for that standard is so as not to limit future development of a site, which also goes to Mr. Maynard's note that these standards really are developed for gravel operations as opposed to excavate, what we're supposed to use them for excavation and fill associated with the development activity, but a lot of the standards really are meant to deal with ongoing operations. And it does not look like we have had anyone else join us for the meeting.
Okay. If there's no reason to keep this open, I would entertain a motion to close the hearing. Ken?
I'll move the hearing be closed.
Okay, moved by Ron,
I'll second.
second by Ward. All in favor? Okay, passed unanimously. Hearing is closed at 7:06 PM.
The next
So-
hearing on your agenda, Mr. Chair, it was scheduled for 6:45 PM. And it's a special permit application of Haven Communities LLC applicant, KRCL LLC and E&I Associates LLC owners for a mixed-use project including 399 residential units and approximately 21,000 square feet of commercial space on 3 parcels located at 1717, 1733, and 1753 Stores Road. Assessors parcel IDs 8.15.10, 8.15.9, and 8.15.8 respectively, and an adjacent vacant parcel, assessors parcel ID 8.15.9-1, PZC file 1372.
Okay, so the hearing is opened at 7:07 PM. Members present are Aho, Corsi, Chandy, Cooley, Cotton, Fatoni, Plant, Ron, and Ward. The applicant has indicated they are not ready to proceed. So a motion to continue the hearing would be appropriate.
And let me just share my screen.
I can put the motion forward.
Okay, thank you.
Shandy. Move to adjourn the public hearing on the special permit application of Haven Communities, PCC file 1372 to Monday, September 20th, 2021 at 6:40 PM by virtual meeting. Information on how to participate in the virtual meeting will be on the meeting agenda.
Okay, moved by Chandy,
I'll second.
second by Ron. All in favor? Okay, motion passes. And it's adjourned. It's not adjourned. It is
Closed for the evening.
closed for the evening at 7:09 PM. So under old business, we have the application of Robert Cardinal for earthwork in excess of the maximum permitted on Pleasant Valley Road. Any discussion, any further discussion of that topic? Actually, this is the discussion now of that topic.
Mr.
Yes.
Chair, if there are no comments or questions from the commissioner, or I did include a draft approval motion
Okay.
in my report that I
Okay.
can share on screen.
Thank you. Vera,
I just want to say, I think they covered the basis of the reason for the special permit, and I think it's an okay.
looks good. Looks good to me too. Any other discussion? Okay, so we have a proposed motion.
And I will say there's 3 slides on this, so
Ooh,
you.
okay. Who likes to read?
I got the stain on your shirt. You notice that?
Yes, I did. Thank you. Is Kyle there?
I'm looking at you, Ken. You like to read.
All right, here we go.
And you got good glasses.
I got about 8 pair hanging around here and 2 by the computer. So this is what came to hand.
All right, good.
Ron, move to approve the July 19, 2021 special permit application of Robert Cardinal to authorize earthwork associated with the construction of a single-family home. Linda, could we slide that slide over? It actually would move to my left so I can really read the full screen.
this is going to be interesting because I did not know that this was. Let me try something else. I can't tell what I cannot
If you
see.
change
what
the
you
size
saw.
of the font. There we go. That's fine. As described in application submissions and as presented at a public hearing that opened on August 2nd, 2021 and closed on August 30, 2021. Pursuant to Article 5, Section B.4 of the Mansfield zoning regulations and Article 10, Section H.4, the site plan requirements contained in Section 5.B.3.D and data accumulation plan requirements contained in section 10.h.3.b are hereby waived as the information is not needed to determine compliance with the zoning regulations due to the limited nature of the proposed activity. This approval is granted because the application is not expected to result in any detrimental neighborhood impacts. It is considered to be in compliance with Article 10, Section H.5, Article 5, Section B, and other provisions of the Mansfield zoning regulations, and is granted with the following conditions. 1, extent of approval. This approval is based upon the applicant's submissions and the conditions cited in this motion. Unless modifications are specifically authorized, the proposed uses shall be limited to those authorized by this approval. Any questions regarding authorized uses, additional site improvements, and conditions cited in this approval shall be reviewed with the zoning agent and Director of Planning and Development, and as deemed necessary, the PZC. 2, hours of operation. Saturday activities shall be limited to deliveries of fill material. 3, proposed truck routes. All trucks shall access the site from Stafford Road, Route 32, to limit travel on local roads. 4, depth to groundwater table. The proposed separation of 2 feet between the bottom of the crawl space and the groundwater table is approved pursuant to the section 10.h.5.h. based on the finding that the separation will not determinately impact groundwater quality. 5, validity. This special permit shall not become valid until filed upon the land records by the applicant.
Okay, moved by Ron,
I'll second.
second by Ward. Any discussion? All in favor? Passed unanimously. Okay, next order of business is a request for a retroactive approval of a gravel road and associated culverted wetlands crossing constructed within Gifford Estate Section 3, Conservation Easement, Ronald Beebe, applicant, owner, PZC file 810. So,
Chairman? Mr.
yes,
Chairman, I will have to recuse myself.
okay. All right. Jennifer, you have a update for us?
Yes, so as stated in my agenda item report back in April, the Conservation Commission did a routine monitoring of a conservation easement located on Davis Road. It's associated with a subdivision, the Gifford Estate subdivision that was approved, I think back in the 80s. It was noted that one of the owners of the property where the conservation easement is had installed a gravel road and culverted a wetland. So you decided that we recommended that you have a field trip. Many of you attended the field trip in May. And then you discussed this and referred it to the Conservation Commission and the town attorney for their opinions. We do have an opinion that we included in your packet from Kevin Deneen, the Mansfield town attorney. And according to Attorney Deneen, you can grant this retroactive approval of the gravel road. Also, according to or in the Conservation Commission minutes, they do not feel that it is consistent with the conservation easement. So I think, legally, you can allow for retroactive approval of this road. I think the commission needs to just decide whether or not this is good policy or not. Mr. Deneen did say that it's not all or nothing. You could put, as he always likes to say, guardrails as to when, do you want to limit the use of the road, the type of vehicles. So it's a little bit of it's a discussion that you all need to have, and then staff can move forward with drafting a motion at your next meeting. So there you have it. If you have
So,
questions for me.
as I see it, the choices are, we would be within our rights to ask that it be restored to the way it was before the road was built. That would be one option. Another option would be to put restrictions on its use. And another option would be to allow it as it is, mindful of the effect it might have on future cases.
You know, the attorney did say that the Conservation Commission was concerned about precedent setting. The attorney did say that, you know, you can evaluate every conservation easement individually. So, but I do think that we have a number of conservation easements in town. And I think that if you do, whatever you decide, you need to kind of be prepared for other people to be asking you and maybe questioning your decisions as to, you know, why you made certain decisions. I think you can, you know, look at every conservation easement separately, but it may come up.
Yes, Ken.
I had some thoughts about this when I initially listened to the presentation that was done several months ago now. And I've read, I think, what most of you read from the Conservation Commission. And I don't think we should allow the road. I think it would be setting an unfortunate precedent. The instructions were that they were not to have a road through a conservation easement. I don't think that we should allow it to continue to stand as something that can be used by a vehicle at any time. So I would oppose the continuation of allowing the road in this particular conservation easement.
So would you be in favor of having it restored to
Yes, I
the
would.
condition it was before?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, I think that would definitely send a message.
That would send a message.
You could have him abandon the road and maybe not use it and not improve it. So there's sort of going to be, you know, how are we going to, you have to think about how you want him to restore. Do you want him to restore it, you know, remove all the gravel and there are some millings there, remove the culvert, or just, you know, abandon that road and not use it anymore?
But one alternative would be to put a boulder in the front of it. I mean, to render it useless. Ken?
I would be satisfied with abandonment if in fact the culvert were removed. It seemed to me that that's kind of what started this. And to me, that's probably among the most egregious events that occurred was, you know, we're deliberately going to go through the wetlands here and put a culvert in.
Now, can we deal with that in the PZC or do we have to deal with that at inland wetlands?
You can deal with it at PZC, but the wetlands agency will have to approve the removal and restoration.
Okay.
Okay.
Any other comments? I would be in favor of making it useless as a road that a vehicle can use and removing the culvert. I think picking up every little piece of gravel is probably unnecessary.
Paul, that is what I had in mind, is
Yeah,
what you're
okay.
suggesting. In terms of the details, I'd be perfectly okay with that.
Katie?
What's the impact of removing the culvert?
Yeah, very good question.
Is it going to be draining stuff that we don't want into wetlands? Is it going to be creating one great big mud hole or what?
Well, I mean, there will have to be, there's going to have to be sort of a restoration plan as to how this culvert is removed. It, that will have to be thoughtfully done. I don't know that we wouldn't want to approve the removal of a culvert if it's going to have more impact, more significant negative impact to the wetland. So I think one of the motions would, or one of what you could consider is to abandon the road, remove the culvert, and recommend removal, submitting a culvert removal and restoration plan, wetland restoration plan for approval by the Inland Wetlands Agency is what.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
this would be something that we'd work on a motion for the next meeting, right?
sure, yeah.
Okay.
So do I have a volunteer for someone to assist with writing a motion to that effect, or another type of motion?
I'll put my hand up on this one since I was the first to speak on it. So
Okay, so we will craft it.
tag on it.
Okay.
I think we have a consensus on where we want to go on this. Okay, good. Do we have our Republican Town Committee alternate present?
I don't think you do.
Not tonight. Okay, so we'll wait till next meeting.
I'd like to just speak to that,
Okay.
Linda. I think that I wouldn't put it on the agenda until we have assurance that he will be here.
Okay, all right. We'll wait for that then. Okay, so next is the temporary and limited moratorium on cannabis establishments. So, Linda.
So, since you had a fairly light agenda this evening, and we also we're back to virtual, we have a full complement. What we had talked about previously after you adopted the moratorium, it was to have the commission just start kind of the conversation as to how you wanted to approach cannabis establishments. And for the record, this is Linda Painter speaking. All of the members have been very good this evening. I have not, in terms of identifying myself. So in your packet, there are a few items. Some of them, I apologize, you just got today. There is a link to Special Public Act 21-1, which is the over 300-page document that deals with the sale and cultivation of cannabis in Connecticut. Jennifer also did a summary of a webinar that she had attended a few weeks ago. And then we added a couple of things. We added some documents today for you. And I also have some PowerPoint slides to run through with you. The documents that we added today, the first two are excerpts from the Public Act. So the first one is definitions. And the second one is section 148, which basically deals with zoning authority over these types of establishments. And then Jen this afternoon actually sent me links to the next two documents. The first one is a white paper from the Southeast Connecticut Council of Governments. And the next one is a nice pamphlet that Southbury has done on Guide to Cannabis. They are actually have a hearing coming up on a 9-month moratorium. So we are not the only ones that are kind of in this process. And the last edition is just our most recent zoning map. So with that, I'm going to pull up share my screen for a PowerPoint just to go through kind of the basics of what we're dealing with. And I apologize, there's a lot of words on this. So hopefully you can see this. If you can't, let me know and I'll try and reduce this. The one thing I'm noticing with Zoom is I have no idea when I share my screen what everyone else sees. So in terms of some of the key things that came out of this new statute, the first that I want to call your attention to is in section 1-1Q. they made it, this is essentially, and Jen can jump in at any point here, essentially where the state defines what is included in agriculture and farming. And it very specifically was amended to specify that the terms agriculture and farming do not include the cultivation of cannabis. So so that is not something that, in terms of, if you think of, I am losing the term here, but kind of your farm friendly agriculture by right, cultivation of cannabis is not that. So the fact that you can grow vegetables on your land does not mean that you can grow cannabis or marijuana. So the next kind of highlights that are provided is what municipalities have the power to do when it comes to these cannabis establishments. So first of all, the town could decide to prohibit the establishment of a cannabis establishment. And in the next slide, we're going to go through what that includes, but it basically includes sales, cultivation, etc. You can establish reasonable restrictions regarding hours and signage for any cannabis establishment. You can establish restrictions on the proximity of cannabis establishments to churches, public or parochial schools, convents, charitable institutions, hospitals or veterans' homes, or any camp, barracks, or flying field of the armed forces. And those are basically the same entities through which you have the ability to establish separation distances for the sale of alcohol. It actually comes from, that's the reference in the statute. I went and looked it up to give you those details. You can establish zoning regulations for cannabis establishments. If the town decides not to basically classify a cannabis establishment differently, we have to treat it the same way as we would treat any other similar use. So for example, if a retail establishment for cannabis wanted to open, we would treat it the same way we treat retail in all of the districts. So in some districts, so for example, downtown, it's permitted by right because retail is one of the uses permitted there. In most of our other districts right now, retail is allowed by special permit. But I will say, if there's an existing retail use that has been permitted in the past, there is not necessarily anything that the commission would have a say on if you're replacing retail with retail. The statute does limit the number of retailers and micro cultivators that can be licensed in any given town. And in order to get those licenses from the state, you do have to demonstrate that you have zoning approval. So up until June 30th of 2024, you can only have one retailer and one micro cultivator for every 25,000 residents, as determined by the most recent decennial census. And per our 2020 census, our population is 25,892 people. So that does qualify Mansfield and takes us, quite frankly, out of the question of whether or not, if you have less than 25,000 residents, can you even have a retailer or a micro cultivator? Starting on July 1st, 2024, the Commissioner of Consumer Protection will determine how many retailers and micro cultivators you can have based on a unit of population. And I believe that this is very similar to the way they deal with package stores. So the number of package stores, I believe, is also limited by your population. And last but not least, the statute actually specifies that special permit approval is required for any retailer or micro cultivator seeking to be located within a municipality. So that is something, that, forget what I said before, the statute spelled it out, that said, if you're going to do this, you have to have special permit approval. At least that was my reading of it. So the next few slides go through the various definitions, and I did not pull every definition. Again, there were probably, I want to say, 10 pages of definitions, because they're dealing with a lot of different regulations on the sale of cannabis. The main ones that I pulled really have to do with what's included in a cannabis establishment. So a producer, a dispensary facility, cultivator, micro cultivator, retailer, hybrid retailer, food and beverage manufacturer, product packager, delivery service or transporter. So cultivator is you're basically growing, and it's not less than 15,000 square feet of grow space. So that is a cultivator. So I believe if I were to skip to the next page, it would define micro cultivator as this one is actually not less than 2,000 square feet and not more than 10,000 square feet prior to any expansion authorized by the commissioner. So there seems to be about a 5,000 square foot gap there, but I'll let someone else deal with why we have a gap between cultivator and micro cultivator. So again, all of these are covered under cannabis establishments, which to some extent, while the statute regulates a retailer and they regulate a micro cultivator, those are the only two limits that I saw in the statute. So we really would need to address all the different aspects of this. So dispensary facility, we already have one in town. We treat those as office uses because that's something where you have to have a prescription in order to access that facility. I have taken a tour of that facility. You do not get in without photo ID, and just about every door in that building is locked. So it has in very tight security. In terms of, they're also hybrid. So that's the hybrid retailer is essentially you have both your dispensary license and your retail license for retail sales of marijuana. Food and beverage manufacturer, so you can create food and beverages using cannabis. We also have packagers, product manufacturers, producers, and I believe producer, just for the record, is essentially the medical marijuana producer. So that's what's not clear when it refers to another section of statutes, but I believe that is what they are referring to. And so a retailer does not include the dispensary facility and hybrid retailer. So for example, if the dispensary in town expanded to become a hybrid, that would not be subject to the one retailer per community. And it gives you the definition there in terms of licensing. And then just in case anyone was interested, and I can send this presentation out to folks, I did pull the definition of marijuana because it's in a separate section of the statutes. It's not in the act itself. And what I did, the reason I did this was just in anticipation of the question of hemp. And so the very last line of this is that, it identifies a lot of things unless it is derived from hemp, which is defined in a separate section of statutes. And while I did not include that definition here, I can tell you it's actually based on the Code of Federal Regulations. So that is the definition of hemp for statutes is they refer directly back to the Code of Federal Regulations in terms of what is considered to be hemp. So now that I've thrown all of that information at you, we are in the midst of a moratorium. The council, when they discussed this, when the moratorium was referred to them, did request that the commission not take the full 9 months, if at all possible, just to kind of keep this process moving. And this is really the first step, is to kind of talk amongst yourselves, and then the next step will be to schedule probably a joint meeting, I would assume, with the council and other advisory committees based on what you're thinking, to kind of get their input, if that makes sense to folks.
Yes, Vera.
Linda, the council has the right to approve this. I mean, they ordinances, for instance, Vernon has put in an ordinance of no smoking in public places.
So it's interesting when you look, and I'm just going to pull up the actual, so it specifically says that that a municipality may by amendment to the zoning regulations or by local ordinance.
I see. So it could be a
Prohibit.
combination of. the
So
two.
it could be kind of either or. They could prohibit the establishment of cannabis establishments, establish reasonable restrictions. And then it does require that the chief zoning official, so that would be Jolene, shall report in writing any zoning changes adopted by the municipality regarding cannabis establishments pursuant to this section, not later than 14 days after the adoption of the changes. So it's, and quite frankly, I think the town attorney is going to have to be very involved in this, whichever way we decide to go. Because again, I think this section really kind of changed throughout the period that it was being considered by the legislature. So this is the final version. And I actually, as I look at the top of this page, I see the word hemp, and apparently I should go through and do a search for the word hemp in the statute to find out what it says. But it looks like they are regulating hemp sales and distribution within dispensary facilities.
Yes, Katie.
Well, that was one problem that I had when I read the statute, that it was prohibiting the growing and selling of hemp. And I can't remember what section it was in, but I wondered if that was going to impact Aquatech, who wants to grow hemp.
So there's actually a whole other statute. And I think what they were trying, again, I did not do a word search in the 303 pages for hemp. So I'll have to do that and go and look at it. There is an entire statute that deals with hemp production, and it's a pilot program. So there are licenses to grow and sell hemp products in Connecticut. It's 31 references to hemp. And I think a lot of it is, just as I scroll through this, is saying cannabis does not include hemp. Hemp is separate.
Okay.
Hemp is covered by.
Yeah, they're two different things.
Two different things. And they're, those are covered. Yeah. So I'd have to read through this, but that just at least the details I'm seeing right now is what they've tried to do is to essentially say, kind of separate hemp and hemp products out from cannabis and marijuana cultivation and sales.
And what makes that confusing is that hemp is cannabis. But it's a different kind of cannabis. Yeah.
Except it's which is why I put they define cannabis as marijuana, and then the definition of marijuana says except hemp, which is as defined in the Code of Federal Regulations. So yes, there's a lot of it does appear that if you start combining, for example, it says once hemp or hemp products are received by a producer, cultivator, microcultivator, or product manufacturer, such hemp or hemp products shall be deemed cannabis and shall comply with the requirements for cannabis. So I think it's almost trying to say, basically, hemp should not be sold or distributed by the people who are doing medical marijuana. That's a completely separate supply chain.
Two different businesses.
They're trying to really keep it separate. And if you do, then now you're.
So let's talk about the marijuana side of it.
Yep.
So the role of the PZC in this would be to either push for not having it at all or having one business, right? Since we have 25,000 people, we would have one store.
You can have, and I do encourage you, I know I sent it out late today, and I think there'll be some, a good way to just, there's some good points in the Southport or Southbury, I should say, regulations, which basically say you're limited to one retailer and one micro cultivator. All those other things that fall under cannabis establishment, those don't have limits. So delivery, product manufacturer, food and
All right.
beverage manufacturer,
Right.
those things are different. And I think Carlita's had her hand raised for a while now.
Sorry. Go ahead, Carlita.
Thank you. My concern is this: I understand now the difference between the hemp and medical marijuana. In light of eventually legalizing the medical marijuana, how much of this is going to end up being mute anyway? How will it be legislated once it is legal, so to speak? Do you get what I'm asking?
On the medical marijuana side?
Well, now, if I'm understanding correctly, we're getting to the point of legalizing beyond medical, right?
Correct.
Okay, so from a proactive standpoint, or how many times, will we be revisiting this, so to speak? Should we be having a conversation about how it should look going forward, or what zoning restrictions should be in place, whether it be, what are they saying, medical versus recreational.
Basically. Yeah. So
See what I'm saying?
And I think that's, and I pulled up Jennifer's summary. She did a good job. She attended a webinar, and it also added some additional bullets that I didn't have. So for example, we cannot ban cannabis delivery. If, you may be able to ban, cannabis establishments, but if somebody wants to deliver cannabis to someone in town, they have that delivery license, they can do so. So again, I think the first question is, do you want to allow these types of facilities, in Mansfield? I can tell you, at least from the discussion at the council level, I think there seemed to be some interest. I would encourage, that's why I think there should be a discussion. I know that there were some who thought that the moratorium was a way of trying to ban these, which I was trying to explain. No, it was just to give the town time to figure out what it wants to do. That there was no anti, it was literally give us time, just because we didn't know what the statute was going to come out with in terms of what we could and could not do and how quickly we needed to act.
Yes, go ahead, Dorian.
To the 25,000 people, that we're only limited to one of each thing, right?
For the micro cultivators and retailers. So
the bottom line is just one establishment each.
So
not like having a liquor store on every other corner.
Right. So but what it does, and again, this is why I think the town attorney needs to be involved, is that it doesn't appear to limit hybrid retailers. So that would be the example of a medical marijuana dispensary so you're basically selling both. You're selling by prescription and you're selling without prescription. And there does not appear to be a limit on that. Again, I think that's a question that the town attorney might need to weigh in on, if I'm correctly interpreting that. The other item on this is that, it limits you to one micro cultivator. It does not appear to limit the number of cultivators, which is really your large scale production. Now, there may be other things. I have not read the 303 pages of this. I'm not going to lie. I focused on, zoning. So there may be some other things that limit cultivators to other locations, and we'll have to dig into that a little bit more.
So I haven't read it all myself. Like in the state of Maine, every individual can basically grow 6 plants.
True in Connecticut.
Also in Connecticut.
2? Okay.
Yeah. So I guess the first question is, do we want to support the one store?
I personally don't have any objection to one or two stores.
I don't either. Ken?
I'm going to stand with both of you guys. It seems to me that we already have a business in town that is selling marijuana. The fact that they're calling it medical marijuana, to me, is kind of a subterfuge. And I think it's time that we allow this business to operate above board. And I think it's likely that somebody that already is doing this is likely to apply for a hybrid permit.
Yeah.
And I'd like to see us go along with it, keep it at the Four Corners as a retail business. We'll continue to collect taxes and maybe we'll even hook up to the water and sewer.
Dorian?
So, I mean, it's allowing us to have one of each establishment. Is there any way to prevent the smoke shop to have one section of marijuana?
I don't think they can do that. No.
That's what I'm wondering. Can, like, I open up a shop and it's all plants and stuff. Can I have like marijuana plants off to the side?
I don't think so.
Nope.
I think there's going to be a lot more coming out on this, as people really dig into it. But, my sense is the reason this act is 303 pages long is because they tried to dot every I and cross every T in terms of what you can and cannot do in terms of licensing. So, there's obviously, I think, more we need to do. One of the things I'd like to do, I know that CCOG put out a white paper. Quite frankly, I'm almost wondering if we might start seeing some of the councils of governments putting out some model regulations that maybe folks can follow. But what I'm sensing is that at least when it comes to kind of the retailers, there's an openness to, identifying, Ken, you're kind of identifying the Four Corners area.
Yep.
This is going to be one of those that, in terms of retailers and the micro cultivators is really going to be first come, first serve. We can specify this in our regulations in terms of where they may be allowed, but once the first license is taken, there are no more to be had based on our population.
We can direct it toward certain parts of the town, right?
Correct. So
Okay.
that's why I gave you the zoning map as well, so that you could kind of look at that. And again, thinking about this as, all of the different components of that definition of what is included in a cannabis establishment is, really thinking about, what parts of town do you want to look at for these different items? So hopefully you're seeing the PowerPoint again. Nope.
Just seeing your screen. Yeah.
Okay. Still getting the hang of this.
Well, another part of town would be the southern part, Eastbrook Mall area.
So you have, cultivator, that's not less than 15,000 square feet of grow space. My guess is, if you want to, and this is where I think talking to the town attorney again, coming in is okay, can you allow different types of establishments and prohibit others? So for example, a cultivator is, at least 15,000 square feet of grow space. Do we want, if we're going to allow that, where is that? My guess is probably not, I'm going to take a guess, probably not in the RAR 90 zone, but I may be wrong.
And remember from our earlier discussions, that is a particularly smelly production. That'd be done in a warehouse type
Yep.
Building. We want that to be as far away from people as possible. So we should think about where in town
Correct.
can you get far from people and put a warehouse sized building?
And it needs
know,
water.
It needs water.
A food and beverage manufacturer, I look at that and go, if you're making food and beverages currently and and now you're doing it with marijuana, I don't know that you need a different rule in terms of where that's located. But we can, again, the micro cultivator, that's the other license where you get one. So not less than 2,000 square feet, not more than 10,000 square feet.
So that's like a large house. Yeah, Vera.
Vera, you're muted.
You're muted.
When you talk about odor, I mean, that's one thing that would be obnoxious to many people who don't perhaps enjoy it.
Yeah. Yeah, we need, if we're gonna, any kind of production has to be as isolated as possible.
And having something at Four Corners, we've got it already, I guess, but to me, it's not right next door to the high school, but it certainly is very accessible. I don't think it should be that accessible.
Vera, if you understand that that delivery is, we're not going to be able to prevent delivery. So if there's an establishment in Vernon and somebody from Mansfield calls and says, bring me, and pays for it with their credit card, there's nothing we can do to stop that.
I just thought, okay, I guess I'm concerned about accessibility and that as benign as many people would like to think this is, if you think you can't get by without it, it's not so benign.
So you can, you can establish restrictions. So even in setting zones, you can set separation distances to certain other uses. We used to have these for alcohol. We eliminated them a few years ago. But those are the types of uses. So you could establish something that says you cannot be within X distance of a public or private school.
Yeah, I think if we have one in the north, like Four Corners, and one in the south, that would seem to pretty well cover it, far from the schools. The most difficult siting would be any kind of production, because we know that that's very smelly. Can we prohibit the production?
I think that's one of the questions I have for Kevin is, you can prohibit the establishment of a cannabis establishment. So given the number of different types of establishments can you have different rules and say, we're going to allow X, we're not going to allow Y? The only thing I've seen kind of in the information that's come out so far, and again, we have to do some more digging, is we can't prohibit delivery. That's one thing that, that I know from Jen's notes was very specific, that you cannot prohibit delivery. There is an ability, I will also note, that if you, as you're all familiar, prior to June of this year, communities could decide by referendum whether, whether or not to allow alcohol sales, and what types to allow, which is what made us a damp town. There is another provision here that does allow a local referendum on whether or not to allow the sale of marijuana for adult use. And at least 10% of voters would have to sign a petition for that. So my understanding of this is towns can make this decision, but then residents, so that the town could say, yeah, we're going to allow sales. And if 10% of the residents said, we have an issue with that, or we think that the residents at large should have a say in that, it could go to referendum, which would then presumably overrule the zoning, the zoning commission and the town council. All right.
Well,
so in terms of next steps, is this something that, you think, what I'm hearing is, kind of an openness, and again, it may be having Kevin Deneen in the council before going to advisory committees. Do you want to start with a joint meeting with the town council to kind of talk this through, or do you want to get feedback from advisory committees? Do you want regulatory review to work on this? What are your thoughts?
Perhaps we could start at reg review and then bring it to a joint meeting. Vera?
I think there's an awful lot to sort through, so if reg review has the time and energy to do that, it might be helpful to the commission as a whole.
Yeah.
So I think
We have a meeting scheduled for this month, right?
we do. The only comment I would have on that is I don't want to dive into too much detail writing regulations without input from others, because otherwise we may go down one road and then hear back from the council or other advisory committees. What are you thinking?
Okay. Which advisory committees would be good to consult?
I think some of the ones that we mentioned back when we did the moratorium were the Economic Development Commission, the Agriculture Committee, and the Town University Relations Commission. I think were three we mentioned in addition to the Town Council.
Let's do those three, and that would be a good place to start.
So how do you want to meet with those, or just do one big meeting with everybody, or have staff meet with them? How do you want to handle it?
Ken?
I suggest staff meet with them. I think it's rather unwieldy for all of us to be together, whether it's virtual or present. That's my perspective. And I do think I'm going to agree with Vera. I do think that if we can have a discussion for the reg review, I think that would be a good idea.
So what we can do is add this to regulatory review for discussion and kind of come up with kind of a set of questions or suggestions that then we can run, I would say, through the advisory committees. And then what I would recommend is, once the advisory committees have looked at it, to bring the PZC and the council together to kind of hear that feedback.
Sounds like a good plan.
Yeah.
All right. So that was your large item for discussion. In terms of, let me stop sharing my screen here.
And E is tabled and F is tabled.
Correct. So.
And we have no new business. And we have, what's the day for our reg review committee?
September 9th at 3:30 p.m. Ken is.
I'm going to be coaching, and then I'm leaving town that night.
Okay,
But,
so we can, if you want, we can try, we can do a special meeting on another day. I just need to know when folks are available.
Luann? Yes.
Yeah, I will also not be available at 3:30 on Thursdays because I have hearings twice a month on that.
Okay,
time.
we'll find a
same-
special, find a special meeting date.
Okay.
Anything else to consider tonight?
Nope, just you do have a couple of communications. You have an email from Mr. Malloy regarding the PZC interpretation of the dwelling unit. With some questions that he has asked of staff. I will say that we're actually talking this through with both the building official and the town attorney, so this may be coming back to you for some clarification. I know the building official reached out to the state building inspector, so we may be coming back with some clarification on that. And then just to note, we did receive a request to extend the site plan approval for 1734 Stores Road. One of the things that the legislature did in this past session was to actually provide some statutory extensions of site plans and special permits. This is pretty common for them whenever we have an economic downturn, that they essentially automatically extend approvals that were granted before a certain time so that folks don't have to come in and ask for extensions, given the extenuating circumstances. So you have a copy of the request for an extension as well as my response saying you don't need one. In this particular case, I think they're actually good through 2031 based on what was adopted. So
That should do it.
they have plenty of time before they need to come back, and they can actually come back after that and ask you for up to another 5 years. And hopefully we will not need that.
Very good. We are adjourned at 8:01 PM. Thank you all
Thank
for
you all
coming.
so
Good night, all.
much.
Good night.